is my great pleasure this morning, and actually this afternoon my time, this morning still with his time, to talk to a longtime friend and probably one of the earliest and most vocal advocates for electric vehicle technology, Paul Scott. Paul is Californian out in Santa Monica, and we've had many a good time together. So Paul, thank you for taking a little bit of time out of your schedule, and we want to talk about a presentation that you gave recently regarding the economics of operating an electric vehicle. And you've got a fair amount of experience in this. You've run a solar powered Toyota RAV4 for many years, and I've had the opportunity to ride in it. And now you're a Nissan electric LEAF salesman, which is kind of cool. And so I want to give you the opportunity to sort of explain that presentation and the case that you make for driving electric. So that's a long introduction. Hello, Paul, and welcome to EV World.
So good to see you again, Bill. It's been many years, but I remember when you came by here years ago and we had that big EV parade.
Yep.
Pardon me. And so a lot has happened since then.
An awful lot has happened since then. I mean, one of the standout events in my mind is when we were riding over in your RAV4 on Hollywood Boulevard, and I'm thinking, here I am in the midst of all of LA, sort of the very heart of what we think of Los Angeles, riding along in a car powered by sunshine. And I thought, this is so cool. So let's talk. You've been selling Nissan LEAFs for a while, so just kind of bring us up to speed. When I met you, you were doing, I think, solar photovoltaic sales, and then you've gotten into doing that. So kind of bring us up to speed, where you are now.
Yes, so I was in the solar business for many years, and about 3 years ago, after being invited to test drive the Nissan LEAF, the first production models in Yokohama, it occurred to me that I could sell that car real easily. I have a database of people who have been following my blog for many years, and so I entered a Nissan dealership in Santa Monica after returning from Japan, and just told the guy, I said, look, I just had lunch with Carlos Ghosn and test drove the new Nissan LEAF, and I could easily make you the #1 LEAF dealer in the nation. So he didn't know me from Adam, but
right.
Based on what I told him, I knew how to drop names pretty well. So
right.
He hired me on the spot. I'd never sold a car in my life, but within 6 months, we were the #1 LEAF dealer in the nation, and I sold a lot of cars for him. Since then, his company lost the lease on their property, so I was picked up by a company downtown LA, Nissan of downtown LA.
Right.
And I've been selling for them for 2 years. And so in total, I've sold about 500 Nissan LEAFs.
Wow, excellent. Does that make you sort of the top Nissan LEAF salesman at this point, or are you in competition for it?
I was the first year, but there's some salesmen in Portland, San Diego, and San Francisco
right.
who have sold more, and they're selling a lot of fleets and things like
right.
that. So, but I'm not in competition for the top sales position, but I just enjoy selling the car and getting as many of them out there as possible. It feels very good.
Right.
Take a gas burner off the road and replace it with an electric car.
Right, excellent. Now let's talk about this, the presentation that you're doing. You've obviously had a chance now for the last several years to sit down across the negotiating table with people thinking about wanting to buy or lease an electric car. I'm sure you've fine-tuned your presentation. So let's pretend that I've walked into the showroom there in Los Angeles and I'm thinking about buying this Nissan LEAF. Take us through if you will, your pitch.
Sure. Well, very often the people come in, they've already committed to themselves to buy an electric car. And if they're still shopping the various models out there, then I have to sell the LEAF against the other plug-in cars. That's generally pretty easy, depending on circumstances. they may need a long-range car on a regular basis. If that's the case, our company owns a Chevrolet dealer and also a Toyota dealer.
Okay.
So I can also sell the plug-in Prius or the Volt.
Okay.
And I've done that on occasion. However, if it's a pure EV that they want, it's pretty easy for me to sell the Leaf against the competition, unless they have the money to buy the Tesla. And if they do, then that's pretty much a no-brainer.
Right.
They buy Tesla. But against the Honda, the Ford, the Spark, the Fiat, we match up pretty well against those cars. So it's rare that I lose a sale on those. It's pretty easy. Now, if they haven't decided on getting an electric car, then I have to convince them that getting an electric car will work for them and it's better. That case, I try to suss out where they're coming from. Are the economics more important, or the environment, national security? What are the issues that they care most about?
All right.
So once I determine that, then I have a pitch for whichever of those issues is most important, and I make it. And generally speaking, they almost all go for the EV.
Excellent. So, yeah, one thing I want to note in your presentation: when we first met, there was only one of those cars you could buy, or one electric car essentially you could buy. You could lease some others and things, but there was one you could buy, and of course that was the RAV4. Did you hear yourself talking about, well, I have to go up against the Spark, the Fiat 500, and what a change, Paul.
Oh, it's a wonderful change. I don't mind having competition. My competition, my real competition, Bill, are the internal combustion cars on my own lot.
Right.
So the internal combustion world is, in my mind, the enemy and my main competition. If somebody doesn't buy a Leaf and ends up going to buy another plug-in car somewhere else, I'm happy for them. I put them in my database and I send them information and I encourage them. I also pitch them on solar, so I'm still selling solar.
Right.
But to me, the big goal here is to get internal combustion off the road as quickly as possible. We're making very good progress on that, and it does feel really good after all those years of struggling to get the car makers to build the cars to now be in a situation where I'm selling a particularly good EV, and there are a dozen other brands that people can buy.
Okay, so let's talk about the economic side of this thing. How do you gave this talk, and I haven't obviously had the opportunity to listen to the talk. I don't even know if it was recorded, but you brought it to a group's attention. I thought I'd want to let's pretend now that instead of talking just to Bill Moore, you've got a few thousand people that you can make that pitch to. So tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, they invited me to come over to Europe and speak at this conference on e-mobility, and that's the term they use in Europe. And there were about 5 countries represented, and mostly the people in the audience were government policy people working for Sweden, Denmark, the Netherlands, Great Britain, and Germany. And they were tasked with increasing the number of electric vehicles in Europe. And so the PowerPoints and presentations they were making had to do with that sort of thing. A lot of it centered on the charging infrastructure, which is obviously one of the big issues here in the States. But my goal was to kind of give them the bigger picture, the macro picture of the economics involved. And to that end, I have to make the case for what oil costs us in reality, not the price of gasoline at the pump, but what does oil cost society? And so I have PowerPoint that talks about the military side of it, the health side of it, and the environmental side. And all of these are multi-billion-dollar costs to society, and in some cases, hundreds of billions of dollars. And in the case of military, it can get into the trillions pretty easily. So I make that case, and I lay out that when you buy, and in the case of the Netherlands, where I was, this was in a town called Haarlem, just outside of Amsterdam.
Okay.
They have no domestic oil whatsoever.
Right.
So whenever they buy petrol, the money that they spend, at least 90% of that money leaves their country,
Yeah.
leaves their economy. And it's the same thing here in California, same thing in Iowa where you are, throughout the U.S., throughout the world, unless you're in the Middle East with sitting on billions of barrels of oil, the money that you spend for gasoline and diesel leaves your community and enters the pockets of people who are pretty evil, in the true sense of the word. So when you make the case for the macroeconomics of it, I'll give you an example because I know California really well. We spend on average about $55 billion every year for gasoline and diesel. 90% of that money leaves California. It leaves me, and that you're looking at 50 billion a year.
So that, I mean, but yeah, so well, Los Angeles is, sits on top of an oil field, or did. So and you've got still derricks out in the channel and things. So I assume from what your comments being made is that most of that oil's not there anymore. It's been depleted.
Well, it's a small percentage of the oil that we use domestically or here in the state of California.
Okay.
If you look at the nation as a whole, about 40% of the oil we're using comes from outside the country. So you can readily say that 40% of the money that we spend leaves the country. Of the 60% that stays domestic, a lot of that is based in Houston, or the money can go up to, now the big oil field is in the Bakken up in North Dakota. But the money doesn't stay local. It doesn't stay in our economy. Even the money that goes to the oil producers here in California doesn't stay circulating in our economy. Because if those guys get the money, they've already got billions. They're not spending it in our economy. They're salting it away in some bank account.
Somewhere else, yeah.
Offshore.
Yeah.
And pay federal taxes on it. So what it does is it takes billions of dollars out of circulation. And we have to earn that money every year. And we're, here in California, we're a giant economy and very strong economy. And so, but we have to make that money, and then we ship 50 billion out of our economy every year. And had that money stayed local, and if people were instead driving electric cars, then it's about 20 cents on the dollar when you buy electricity versus oil. So 20 cents on the dollar will go to the electric utilities, or in the case of those with good solar, they can pay themselves that 20 cents on the dollar by installing the solar system.
Right.
But that money stays local or regional. It doesn't leave the country, and most of it stays in the state. The other 80 cents on the dollar stays in the consumer's pocket, and this is key, because that consumer is going to spend that money. They might save a little bit of it, but for the most part, they'll spend that money on local goods and services, generating thousands and ultimately millions of jobs.
Okay, so I guess what you're saying then is out of that dollar, it's going, instead of $1's worth of gasoline, I can buy an equivalent transportation dollar, I guess, for essentially 20 cents.
Correct.
Which allows me then to take 80 cents and use that for some other purpose.
Exactly.
And that other purpose generally can be for goods and services that are happening, again, within the state and causing that money to continue to circulate.
That's right.
Okay. How many people, I mean, what kind of response did you get from the people in the Netherlands then at that conference to that argument?
It was very positive. A lot of people who subsequently had presentations after me referred to some of the things I had said, which that felt good. And then after the conference, we were all milling about having food, and several people came up and said that they had not considered this argument before, and it made a lot of sense. And since these are people who are tasked with making policy in their respective countries, they got it. They understood that their countries are all sending money out, and especially in Europe. Now, Sweden might have some oil. I don't know. I know Norway has a lot of oil.
Right.
And they're a net exporter. But Germany, they import everything.
Yeah.
Netherlands, Great Britain. Great Britain might have a little bit. I'm not sure. But
yeah,
for the most part, they're net importers, and which means they're sending money outside. Right. So they got it. And I told them at the very end of my talk, I said, this is when you go to make your case to help fund and incentivize electric vehicles, This is the money that you can use. It's money that you're shipping out of the country.
Yeah.
You need to reverse that flow and keep that money in. You'll all be much wealthier for it.
Right. So I don't expect you're going to be getting any kind of invitations to come speak in Abu Dhabi.
Nor would I want to.